Chapter 1331. Yeah. Yuanwan didn't know what Lu Ying was doing, but her only option in this situation was to nod and go along with him. What fond memories! Lu Ying smiled faintly. Back then, President single-handedly eliminated an evil power in China. We happened to offend that evil power, and were coincidentally saved by President. The 5-member mercenary group was startled. When were we ever abducted by an evil power? President, my name is Lu Ying. Do you still remember us after all these years? Lu Ying asked with a chuckle. Yuanwan put on an act and pretended to contemplate it for a moment before saying, now that you mention it, it does ring a bell. Unfortunately, President rejected us when we wanted to follow President. You told us that you'd think about taking us in if we could get to the independent state. President, we went through a profuse amount of trials and hardships, but we finally caught up to you and arrived in the independent state, Lu Ying said. Old Jiang from the 5-member mercenary group was the first to regain his senses. He didn't know why Lu Ying and Master were saying this, but they wouldn't go wrong by following Lu Ying's story. President, we want to follow you, Old Jiang added hastily. You're truly persistent. However, my fearless alliance doesn't allow just anyone to enter. Moreover, you're outsiders. Outsiders need to die, Big Dipper said with a sneer while looking at Lu Ying and his group. Wait, 7-Star interjected suddenly. Didn't you say you belonged to the Rose of Death earlier? Isn't that inconsistent with your current explanation? Old Jiang's brows furrowed. That was a little trick of ours, Lu Ying said. What kind of behemoth is the Fearless Alliance? If small fry like us came to the Fearless Alliance and clamored to see Bro Flat Top of the Fearless Alliance, you would probably kick us out immediately, right? Lu Ying continued as he looked at 7-Star. However, if we said we were members of the Rose of Death, a faction like that would probably alarm the President. As the result shows, we achieved our objective, didn't we? 7-Star sunk into silence, his eyes assessing Lu Ying. You've gone through a lot of trouble to enter the Fearless Alliance, Yuanwan told Lu Ying and the 5-member mercenary group. That's right. President, we really want to follow you, little Lolita said pitifully. Sisfeng, they're outsiders. According to the traditional rules established by the Martial Arts Union. 7-Star turned to Yuanwan. What? Do I need you to tell me what to do? Yuanwan questioned him coldly. It's Sisfeng's own decision, of course. 7-Star retreated to the side and didn't say anything else. Big Dipper, bring them to my office, Yuanwan instructed Big Dipper before leaving. After Yuanwan returned to the office, her face was ashen, and her heart was pounding madly. It had to be said that there were truly too many risks today. What kind of trouble was Lu Ying cooking up this time? She originally thought Lu Ying would expose her identity. To her surprise, Lu Ying actually helped her instead. However, what puzzled Yuanwan was why the 5-member mercenary group was with Lu Ying. Additionally, all 6 of them came to the independent state, and knew she was in the Fearless Alliance. Sisfeng, you don't really plan to take those outsiders in, right? Big Dipper opened the door and entered at that time. Where are they? Yuanwan asked. They're outside the door. I didn't let them enter, Big Dipper replied. Chapter 1332. Big Dipper thought for a moment before sincerely saying, Sisfeng, I heard that the Martial Arts Union is about to make trouble for you. Oh, Yuanwan was startled. She didn't do anything. Why would the Martial Arts Union come to make trouble for her? We don't know why yet. But getting the Martial Arts Union's attention definitely isn't good. The rules of the independent state prohibit the entry of outsiders. If you take in those people, I'm afraid it won't end well, Big Dipper replied. Yuanwan naturally knew the independent state's rules, but didn't Bro Flat Top of the Fearless Alliance always ignore the rules? Also, Sisfeng, those 6 people might be decent in the outside world, but they're trash in the independent state, especially our Fearless Alliance. What can they do? They're a waste of rice. Big Dipper kept trying to persuade Yuanwan. Yuanwan didn't refute Big Dipper's words. It wasn't until arriving in the independent state that Yuanwan truly understood the saying, however strong you are, there's always someone stronger. For example, Lu Ying was the head captain of the Xi family's hidden guards in China, so he was quite capable. But that was only in China. His strength was utterly insignificant in the independent state. Take your leave first and let them enter, Yi Wanwan told Big Dipper. Hold on. Sisfong, there's something else. When Xiren is about to come back, Big Dipper said hesitantly. When Xiren? Surprise rose in Yi Wanwan's heart. After entering the Fearless Alliance, Yi Wanwan crammed information about all of Bro Flattop's interpersonal relationships, so she had heard about When Xiren. When Xiren was Bro Flattop's sworn elder brother. Rumors said he was an utter lunatic and degenerate. His ill reputation rang far in the independent state. Based on Yi Wanwan's understanding, When Xiren and Bro Flattop, by Feng, had an extremely good relationship and were close like a biological brother and sister. After Bro Flattop went missing, he caused a series of commotions, but didn't obtain any information about Bro Flattop. I got it. Yi Wanwan nodded. Another person greatly familiar with Bro Flattop, and also someone not to be trifled with. Yi Wanwan sighed inwardly. Life was really like a play and completely relied on one's acting skills. If this continued, she would get an Oscar soon. Now though, she could only think of an impromptu solution whenever a challenge arose. No matter who When Xiren was, she had no choice but to keep acting. Shortly after, Big Dipper turned around and left the office. A moment later, the 5-member mercenary group and Luiying slowly entered the office. Lock the door. Yi Wanwan told Bearded Man quickly locked the office's door from the inside. Master, what's going on? Little Lolita looked at Yi Wanwan with confusion written all over her face. Why did Master pretend to be unfamiliar with us earlier? Also, how did Master turn into the president of the Fearless Alliance? Let me ask you first, Yi Wanwan asked the mercenary group. How did you come to the independent state and how did you know I was in the Fearless Alliance? Emperor Ji told us. Little Lolita answered honestly. Ji Xiran. Yi Wanwan was startled by Little Lolita's answer. We were brought here by Emperor Ji's people from China. Old Jiang explained. Emperor Ji also told us. You were in the Fearless Alliance, Master, so we came here, Little Lolita said. Yi Wanwan frowned deeply as she sunk into contemplation. Chapter 1333 Ji Xiran ordered people to go to China and brought the 5-member mercenary group back to the independent state, meaning Ji Xiran knew her true identity already. Yi Wanwan recalled Ji Xiran's self-introduction to her that day. Yi Wanwan was confident Ji Xiran definitely knew she wasn't the president of the Fearless Alliance, Bro Flattop. However, what Yi Wanwan didn't understand was why Ji Xiran didn't expose her if he knew her identity. Why did he follow along? Yi Wanwan turned to Luiying. I don't know. Old Jiang shook his head. They were unfamiliar with Luiying and didn't know how Luiying was brought to the independent state. Long time no see. A bitter smile surfaced on Luiying's face as he looked at Yi Wanwan. Back then, after Si Mingli and Qin Ruoxi gained control of the Si family, Luiying believed Qin Ruoxi betrayed Si Yihan, so he snuck into Qin Ruoxi's room in the middle of the night to assassinate Qin Ruoxi. Unfortunately, Qin Ruoxi wasn't at the Si residence that night, and he was caught by Emperor Ji's subordinate, Duan Fei, and was brought here. Yi Wanwan was pensive when she heard Luiying's explanation. In other words, Duan Fei wanted to abduct Qin Ruoxi and bring her to the independent state, but Qin Ruoxi wasn't in her room, and Duan Fei coincidentally ran into Luiying, who went to assassinate Qin Ruoxi. A series of incidents later, Luiying was brought here. Yi Wanwan still couldn't comprehend Ji Xiran's intentions. Why did he bring people with a connection to her to the independent state? What did he plan to do? Old Jiang, wait outside the door with them. I have something to say to Luiying. Yi Wanwan turned to Old Jiang. Old Jiang nodded and led little Lolita and the others outside. Only Yi Wanwan and Luiying remained in the office. Is there news about Si Yihan? Yi Wanwan asked. Luiying shook his head. Not long after Ninth Master disappeared, Qin Ruoxi and Si Mingli took control of the Si family, and I left the Si family. However, I'm in Ninth Master's debt. I just wanted to kill Qin Ruoxi for her actions as final payment toward the Si family and Ninth Master. After that, anything that happens to the Si family will be none of my business. Yi Wanwan had never doubted Luiying's loyalty toward Si Yihan and the Si family. Luiying was merely a bit blindly loyal. Miss Wanwan. I'm very sorry for the past events, Lu Ying mocked himself. I always thought you had an ulterior motive for staying with Ninth Master. However, I was too stupid. The one with an ulterior motive wasn't Miss Wanwan, it was Qin Ruoshi. Guilt toward Yi Wanwan lingered in Lu Ying's heart. After Qin Ruoshi took control of the Xi family, he not only realized Qin Ruoshi's true personality, but also his own stupidity. Let's forget about the past for now. Earlier Yi Wanwan looked slightly perplexed. Lu Ying smiled. Are you talking about how you're pretending to be the president of the Fearless Alliance? I learned from old Jiang that you claim to be the Rose of Death's leader, Black Widow. But Rose of Death hasn't appeared for many years, and its leader probably isn't Miss Wanwan's age. Hence, I surmised that Miss Wanwan was pretending. Then I saw Miss Wanwan again in the Fearless Alliance, and those people called Miss Wanwan president. I thought maybe Miss Wanwan was pretending to be the president of the Fearless Alliance this time. Chapter 1334. 1334. And Seven Star clearly didn't believe Miss Wanwan's identity, so I naturally knew what to say, Lu Ying explained. Yi Wanwan nodded. It had to be said that Lu Ying might be stupidly loyal, and often acted ignorantly in the Xi family. He was actually an intelligent person. This time, if it weren't for Lu Ying, she and the 5-member mercenary group would have been in big trouble. Miss Wanwan, you're now the president of the Fearless Alliance. Please give me another chance. I don't want to return to China. Lu Ying suddenly half knelt down next to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan was contemplative when she heard that. If she allowed Lu Ying to stay, she didn't need to worry about Lu Ying exposing her identity. Based on her understanding of Lu Ying wouldn't betray anyone who he swore his loyalty and fealty to. If Lu Ying wanted to harm her, he wouldn't have rescued her earlier. If she allowed Lu Ying to stay, it would be advantageous to make him responsible for searching for Si Yihan in the independent state. Yi Wanwan made a decision after a moment of thought. She nodded and said, First, find a place to rest with old Jiang and the others. I have a plan for this. Remember, don't let old Jiang and the others mention the Rose of Death again, or call me master. Thank you, Miss Wanwan. I understand what to do. Gratitude surfaced in Lu Ying's eyes. Lu Ying soon got up and left. After Lu Ying left, the Black Panther, Virus, slowly strolled into the office and silently sat down next to Yi Wanwan. His eyes, akin to brass bells, glanced at Yi Wanwan occasionally. Yi Wanwan didn't hold any fear toward Virus anymore. She knelt down next to Virus and scratched his chin. Virus leaned his head against Yi Wanwan's arm with pleasure, causing it to sink instantly. Ahem, this head truly wasn't a lightweight. President. An elderly man suddenly burst into the office in haste. Roar. Virus's terrifying eyes turned to the elderly man instantly, and a roar escaped his mouth. Little Black, behave. Yi Wanwan quickly pacified Virus. Virus immediately narrowed his eyes. Yi Wanwan's comforting words were evidently very effective. Only then did the elderly man speak. President. Emperor Ji is here. He's specifically looking for you. Do you want to let him inside? The only one in the Fearless Alliance who knew their president was Emperor Ji's fiancée, was Autumn Water. No one else was in the know. Hence, it was normal for this elderly man to be on high alert upon Emperor Ji's arrival. No need to panic. Bring Emperor Ji here. Yi Wanwan said with a frown. Perfect timing. She just wanted to ask Ji Xiran why he brought the 5-member mercenary group to the independent state. The elderly man naturally wouldn't second-guess his president's decision, so he turned and left. A moment later, Ji Xiran appeared in Yi Wanwan's line of sight with a faint smile on his lips. Before Yi Wanwan could say anything, she saw an enormous white tiger following behind Emperor Ji. This white tiger was familiar to Yi Wanwan. Isn't this Great White? Great White naturally walked to Yi Wanwan and evaluated her with mixed feelings in his eyes. Virus stood up, an inexplicable vicious glint surfacing in his eyes when he saw Great White next to Yi Wanwan. This white tiger is probably your pet as well, Ji Xiran said to Yi Wanwan with a light chuckle. You know. Yi Wanwan frowned. Yi Wanwan surmised Ji Xiran probably discovered everything already. Chapter 1335. No what? Ji Shiran stated with a dry smile. While you were gone from the independent state, it turns out you went to China. That place is rather nice. I was afraid you would get lonely, so I brought some of your friends from China here. You aren't angry, right? Yi Wanwan was startled. Could it be that Ji Shiran didn't investigate my identity, but simply investigated the places I went and the people I befriended? Then Emperor Ji brought the 5-member mercenary group and Luiying to the independent state just to fend off my boredom? What kind of mad logic is this? Of course, Yi Wanwan wasn't dumb. Since Emperor Ji didn't raise doubts about her identity, Yi Wanwan wouldn't seek trouble for no reason, or say anything that might expose herself. Oh right. Emperor Ji looked at Yi Wanwan. Are you close to the Xi family of China? Oh, we're all right. I had some interactions with the Xi family in China. Oh? Only some interactions? Emperor Ji's lips turned up with an inexplicable smile. Yes. Yi Wanwan nodded with conviction. That's fine. I was just asking. I heard that the patriarch of the Xi family disappeared. He should be your friend, right? How about I help you look for him? Look for him? Out of fear, sweat-drenched Yi Wanwan. Things really couldn't be explained if he was found. No need. I've greatly troubled you already. I can find him myself. Yi Wanwan forced herself to be calm and smiled placidly. I was just joking with you. Ji Shiran smiled faintly. The Fearless Alliance has changed in the years you were gone. There are a lot of side factions. You should be able to use the people I brought to the independent state. You should feel more at ease with a few confidants by your side. Thank you so much, Yi Wanwan said. Everything would be fine as long as Emperor Ji didn't doubt her identity. You seem to be quite nervous every time you see me. Ji Shiran walked closer to Yi Wanwan. The smile that lingered on his lips made her feel like a spring breeze had washed over her. However, Yi Wanwan wasn't in the mood to admire this handsome man's good looks. How could she not be nervous? She was pretending to be Emperor Ji's fiancé. Everything would go to hell if she made any mistakes. I'm your fiancé. Why would I be nervous around you? Yi Wanwan steadied her mind and asked with a chuckle as she met Ji Shiran's long and narrow, witty eyes. Oh, is that so? Ji Shiran said. Why else? Yi Wanwan feigned calmness. You're right. Ji Shiran nodded. Then I think it's about time for us to get married. What do you think? Why can't we keep being an engaged couple? Why the heck are we getting married? I haven't been back in the independent state for that long. You should know about the situation with the Fearless Alliance. There's a lot of business that requires my attention. I also need to stabilize the Fearless Alliance's internal affairs. Let's postpone it. Yi Wanwan said placidly after pretending to think for a moment. Ji Shiran chuckled lightly. I was merely joking with you. I also don't plan on getting married. Yi Wanwan's eyes brightened. Ji Shiran doesn't plan on getting married. This is freaking wonderful. If that's true, then I can act more realistically. What did you say? Yi Wanwan's face chilled instantly. You don't plan on getting married? What do you mean? We're engaged. Do you plan to keep being my fiancé? For your whole life? If it's Ji Shiran himself who doesn't want to get married, it has nothing to do with me. Chapter 1336. When Ji Shiran heard that, he looked at Yi Wanwan with amusement, indulgence surfacing in his eyes. That's more like you. Xiaofeng, I wanted to ask you a question, Ji Shiran quietly said. What question? Yi Wanwan replied. Were you happy all these years? Yi Wanwan turned silent. What does Ji Shiran mean? I've been fine. Yi Wanwan answered after a moment of thought. You don't need to answer my question right now. Tell me later. I have something to do, so I'll take my leave now. Ji Shiran turned to leave. After Ji Shiran left, Yi Wanwan was bewildered. Why's Ji Shiran so nutty? Anyway, it was good she somehow made her way through. Yi Wanwan immediately turned around and looked at Great White with a joyous expression. She never would have imagined she would see Great White in the independent state. Before Yi Wanwan could walk toward Great White, Virus intercepted her path and blocked Yi Wanwan behind him. Virus seemed a bit agitated and kept growling at Great White lowly occasionally as though in warning. However, Great White merely peered at Virus from the corner of his eye, as though deeming it below himself to pay attention to Virus. Roar! Before Yi Wanwan could react, Virus released a low and powerful roar and walked toward Great White, using his paw to slap Great White a few times, seemingly testing something. Yi Wanwan was dumbfounded. Virus didn't want to attack Great White, right? Don't humiliate yourself. A panther was merely a panther after all. How could he compare to a tiger, especially a haughty tiger like Great White? After continuous provocation from Virus, Great White finally stood up slowly, his bone-chilling eyes turning to Virus, a low warning growl coming from his mouth. Damn! Sweat covered Yi Wanwan's body. These two ancestors weren't planning to fight, right? Yi Wanwan didn't mind a fight between people since she could just pull them apart. If two ferocious beasts started fighting though, how would she pull them apart, and who would dare to do that? Great White, be good. Don't be angry. Yi Wanwan hastily soothed him as she turned to Great White. However, what Yi Wanwan didn't expect was that her pacification ignited Virus fury in an instant. Faster than Yi Wanwan could react, Virus transformed into a black shadow and pounced at Great White. In the blink of an eye, Virus and Great White rolled into a tumble and started fighting. Inside the office, the growls and furious roars of wild animals rang out ceaselessly. Yi Wanwan stood in her spot and face-bombed when she saw the fight. What kind of sin did she commit? Sis Feng, what happened? Big Dipper rushed in all of a sudden. Big Dipper didn't need Yi Wanwan's answer, and could see the situation for himself as soon as he stepped into the office. Ah, this white tiger is strong. It can actually hold its own against Virus. Big Dipper nodded reflexively as he watched the animals fighting from the sideline. Separate them. Yi Wanwan ordered Big Dipper. Big Dipper froze in his spot upon hearing that, and turned to Yi Wanwan in disbelief. Sis Feng, you aren't serious, right? You're telling me to separate two fierce beasts in a fight. If he really did that, Virus and that white tiger would probably rip him apart. Chapter 1337. Yi Wanwan didn't think too deeply and swiftly shot forward, hugging Virus. Virus roared but abruptly calmed down when his vicious eyes saw Yi Wanwan. Great White. Yi Wanwan hugged Virus with one arm and hugged Great White with her other arm. Big Dipper was flabbergasted by this scene and automatically gave Yi Wanwan a thumbs up. Awesome. Sis Feng, I don't admire walls but I admire you. Yi Wanwan tuned Big Dipper out and kept comforting Great White and Virus as she knelt next to him. These two ancestors' astrological signs probably didn't match. They started ripping each other apart the instant they met without even a greeting. Little Black, be good. Great White just came here, so don't bully Great White. Yi Wanwan meaningfully lectured as she ran her hands over Virus's ink-like fur again and again. Haha. Sis Feng, you sound like you're disciplining your son. Big Dipper guffawed loudly. Virus has been with you in the Fearless Alliance since he was young, so this place is basically his territory. A fierce beast like him is extremely intelligent and also has a very strong territorial sense, so it's normal that they would fight. Do I need you to tell me? Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. This buffoon lacked a brain, right? He had the guts to explain something that was common sense? Any wild beast has an extremely intense sense of territory, alright? Who hasn't raised a few wild beasts before? Sis Feng, I heard. It was Emperor Ji who brought this white tiger here? What's the deal? Big Dipper asked Yi Wanwan curiously. It's a white tiger I adopted after leaving the Fearless Alliance. I asked Emperor Ji to help me find him last time. Yi Wanwan found a random excuse. Big Dipper was briefly startled and was filled with admiration. You truly deserve to be my Sis Feng. You can raise two beasts anywhere you go. Oh right, Sis Feng, my friend raised a bear. Are you interested? If Sis Feng is interested, I can tell my friend to give his bear to you. No thanks, I'm not interested. If you're truly bored out of your mind, then get your ass over here and help me look after them, Yi Wanwan said coldly. Sis Feng, I suddenly remembered I have something to do. I'll talk to you later. Big Dipper dashed out of Yi Wanwan's office as soon as he finished speaking. After a while, Great White and Virus continued to stare at each other with an intense hostility in each other's eyes. If it weren't for Yi Wanwan's continual pacification, Great White and Virus probably wouldn't relent until one survivor remained. It had to be said that virus fighting capability caused Yi-Wan to develop a whole new level of respect for him. Great White was a big-sized feline while Virus was medium-sized feline. One was a tiger and one was a panther. Yet they still fought each other on even grounds. Be good, little black. Be good, Great White. Come on, shake paws. You're good friends from now on. Yi-Wan grabbed Virus and Great White's paws and smacked them together. However, Virus released a dangerous growl while Great White coldly looked at Virus. Their astrological signs truly don't match. President. An impeccably dressed, middle-aged man entered Yi-Wan's office with large strides. Speak, Yi-Wan said. President, there are people from the Martial Arts Union who want to see you. The middle-aged man replied with a frenzied expression. Martial Arts Union. Yi-Wan frowned lightly when she heard that. Chapter 1338. Big Dipper mentioned to Yi-Wan earlier that the Martial Arts Union would seek trouble from her. However, after coming to the independent state and entering the Fearless Alliance, she followed the rules rather well and didn't do anything inappropriate. As the official power of the independent state, why was the Martial Arts Union looking to make trouble for her? Could it be that Bro Flattop did something that offended the Martial Arts Union? And now the Martial Arts Union is adding the payback to my tab? Yi-Wan thought. If that's true, then I truly became a professional scapegoat. I know. Come here and help me look after these two. Yi-Wan slowly stood up but didn't look away from Virus and Great White, afraid that these two ancestors would start fighting as soon as she looked away. Virus had no regard for his life at all when he fought, and Great White might not like to instigate trouble. But he wasn't afraid of trouble either. If Virus wanted to fight to the death with him, Great White would only comply. Virus. Press, The man in a suit's expression instantly shifted when he heard that and sweat soaked his forehead. President, you know Virus' personality best. He's too aggressive and powerful, and only listens to you in the entire Fearless Alliance. How could I watch over them? What made the suited man most speechless was that his president not only raised Virus, but also obtained a white tiger. If these two beasts started fighting, who could suppress them? Moreover, what would he do if these two wild beasts didn't fight each other, and wanted to tear him apart instead? Do as I say, stop blabbering. Yi-Wan ordered coldly. All right, helpless, the suited man was forced to nod in agreement. He stood as far from the two animals as he could. Don't let them start fighting. You'll be responsible if anything happens to them, Yi-Wan added. President, if they really start fighting and I can't hold them back, what should I do? The suited man asked when he saw Yi-Wan leaving. Then come find me ASAP. Yi-Wan left the office after saying that. The conference room on the 5th floor. An elderly man and several young men and women had been waiting inside the conference room for a long time. The leader was around 60 years old. He wasn't young, but he looked full of energy and didn't appear old at all. The young people standing next to the elderly man all had their hands behind their backs with aloof expressions and an extraordinary aura. Soon, Yi-Wan entered the conference room, accompanied by Big Dipper and Seven Star. Yi-Wan was walking in the front while Big Dipper and Seven Star followed behind on her left and right sides. Elder Jean, our president is here, Big Dipper announced while looking at the elderly man. The elderly man, Elder Jean, lightly nodded upon hearing that but merely glanced at Yi-Wan without any intention of speaking. At Elder Jean's signal, a young man in black sneered and said, "We've heard your name for a long time. What an honor to meet you today. Unfortunately, this meeting doesn't live up to your reputation." Big Dipper's brows furrowed slightly, but Yi-Wan was there, so there wasn't room for him to talk. Yi-Wan's lips turned up into a bewitching smile. What a high and mighty front the Martial Arts Union had. They wanted to take her a notch down as soon as they met. Yi-Wan naturally didn't hold any fear toward the Martial Arts Union, since she wasn't the actual president of the Fearless Alliance. Chapter 1339. Yi-Wan coldly looked at the man in black. "Who the hell are you? Who said you could talk here?" "You," the man in black's expression changed. "Heh. The Martial Arts Union, huh? How ridiculous." Yi-Wan looked at Elder Jean and said, Your martial arts union represents the official power of the independent state. Don't merely focus on minding external business. You should remember to also improve the quality of your internal departments. The martial arts union strays seriously lack etiquette. Yi Wanwan might be talking with a poisonous tongue, but she was helpless inside. She also didn't want to insult the martial arts union, alright? Big Dipper could be ignored, but 7-Star was next to her and watching her every move. She was forced to insult them. At that time, the martial arts union could blame the true president of the Fearless Alliance if they wanted. Bai Feng, who the hell are you? How dare you speak so rudely to the martial arts union? Even Azura from back then wouldn't do that, let alone you. Bai Feng, I'm telling you, put away the front you're showing to the outside. You acting arrogantly and fearlessly is an utter joke to us. A sweet-looking woman harshly shouted out of nowhere. Who the hell am I? Yi Wanwan snorted and dryly said, 7-Star, tell her who I am. The president of the Fearless Alliance, 7-Star replied. Yi Wanwan nodded and slowly walked to the sweet-looking woman. Before anyone could react, she lifted her hand and mercilessly slapped the woman's face. Slap. The crisp sound took everyone by surprise. There were quite a few junior and senior management members from the Fearless Alliance inside the conference room. When they saw their president slapping a member of the martial arts union without demur, they seriously jumped in fright. However, this wasn't a surprise. It would be reasonable even if the president suddenly drew out a saber and hacked that woman to death, let alone a mere slap. This was the president's modus operandi indeed. You. The sweet-looking woman clutched the left side of her face, frightening malice surfacing in her eyes. Who the hell are you? You're bringing out Azura and Lord Azura to frighten me? When I led the siege on Azura back then, who knew where you were? Were you playing with mud? Get out of my sight. Yi Wanwan shouted coldly. Yi Wanwan turned to 7-Star before the woman could react. Throw her out. 7-Star briskly complied and wordlessly approached the woman. He grabbed her by the lapels and forcefully flung her out of the conference room. A loud boom was heard as the woman crashed onto the floor outside. President Bai, you're too insolent. Several members of the martial arts union coldly shouted immediately. Insolent. Yi Wanwan snorted. This is the headquarters of the Fearless Alliance. Even the heads of the 4 great clans would have to speak to me nicely if they came here, let alone clowns like you. Remember, I don't care whether you can call the wind and summon the rain in the independent state. In my Fearless Alliance, coil up if you're a dragon and lay down if you're a tiger. Yi Wanwan ignored the members of the martial arts union after saying that, and turned to Elder Jean. With a faint smile she asked, Elder Jean, may I ask why you came here to talk to me today? There's no harm in telling me. Elder Jean slowly looked up with a dry smile on his face. Rumors say that the president of the Fearless Alliance fears nothing, not even the heavens, and even the 4 great clans are unwilling to provoke you. It appears the rumors aren't false. However, Yi Wanwan's brows furrowed slightly when she saw Elder Jin's face clearly. Her head felt like it exploded abruptly as several blurry memories surfaced in her mind. For some reason, she felt like she had seen this person somewhere before. Chapter 1340. 1340. The fragments of memory that flickered in Yi Wanwan's mind were very blurry. In those fragments, aside from Elder Jean, several faces that struck fear inside of her also appeared. Her mind was very instinctively resistant toward these memories, and that explosive pain grew more intense. Sis Feng, 7-Star spoke up when he sensed something amiss in Yi Wanwan's expression. Yi Wanwan took a deep breath and swiftly controlled her emotions. The fragments of memory just now were too blurry, so she merely felt an instinctive fear. However, she couldn't recall just what was it that caused such fear. Yi Wanwan was clueless. Yi Wanwan sneered at Elder Jean. Elder Jean, logically speaking, since you came to the Fearless Alliance, I, Bai Feng, should welcome you as the host today. However, there are too many bothersome matters in the Fearless Alliance lately, so speak frankly, Elder Jean. Don't waste both of our valuable time. Okay. Elder Jin's gaze landed on Yi Wanwan, and confusion surfaced in his eyes after a brief assessment. Although he had heard the president of the Fearless Alliance's name, by phone before. Their first meeting was today. For some reason though, he found this woman a bit familiar, as though they had met before. However, Elder Jean didn't think too deeply about it. This woman was the president of the Fearless Alliance, after all. Perhaps he met her somewhere before she left the independent state. President Bai, I'll speak openly then. Elder Jean calmly looked at Yuanwan. Are you familiar with the Zhou family, President Bai? Somewhat familiar, Yuanwan said. When she first came to the independent state, she would have ended up homeless on the streets if it weren't for the Zhou family, so she did owe the Zhou family to a certain degree. All right. Elder Jean nodded. I heard that President Bai used a firearm in the Zhou residence that day. Big Dipper and the other senior management of the Fearless Alliance were shocked at Elder Jin's words. Firearms were clearly prohibited in the independent state. This rule was established by the 4 great clans instead of the martial arts union, and none of the other rules in the independent state ever conflicted with that rule. The reason the independent state was able to develop until now without any interference and disturbance from other countries was precisely because the people in the independent state found using firearms disdainful and would never use firearms. Once a power started using firearms, it would become the entire independent state's public enemy without a question. The president of the Fearless Alliance didn't dare to use firearms, even at the peak of the Fearless Alliance back then. This wasn't because Bro Flattop was afraid. It was because she respected the independent state, and didn't wish to become enemies with the entire independent state. The current Yi Wanwan thoroughly understood the independent state's rules and knew without anyone telling her that the rules implied not using firearms. She also knew that even the real Bro Flattop wouldn't dare to use firearms, let alone a counterfeit like her. Hence, how could Yi Wanwan admit a heinous crime like using a firearm so easily? Heh. Yi Wanwan looked at the expressionless Elder Jean and lightly chuckled. Elder Jean, you can eat things carelessly but you can't say things carelessly. You're saying I used a firearm. What proof do you have though? Chapter 13:41 7-star slowly turned to look at Yi Wanwan. Quite a few people personally witnessed Yi Wanwan using a firearm at the Zhou residence back then. Although the majority of people didn't dare to speak carelessly about the Fearless Alliance, someone would eventually tell this kind of thing to the Martial Arts Union. President Bai. Elder Jean turned to Yi Wanwan. Hundreds of people clearly saw you using a firearm at the Zhou residence. Walls have ears in the independent state. The Martial Arts Union naturally knows what you did. When you used a firearm at the Zhou residence, a few members of our Martial Arts Union's investigation team witnessed it. Why would our Martial Arts Union frame you for this matter? Elder Jean is referring to us. It was us who personally witnessed President Bai using a firearm. It's true, we even recorded a video from that day. A certain man calmly spoke up from behind Elder Jean. After saying that, the man pulled up a video on his phone, and everyone could clearly see the contents of the video. Yi Wanwan was holding a gun in front of the Zhou residence. So what if my president pointed a gun at me? I'm happy to have a gun pointed at me. I like having a gun pointed at me. Who told you to mind my own business? The elderly man, who Yi Wanwan pointed a gun at outside the Zhou residence that day, suddenly stepped forward and coldly shouted. Oh! A certain member of the Martial Arts Union looked at the elderly man and snorted. Li Gongchen, you're rather masochistic to like having a gun pointed at your head. Li Gongchen disdainfully said. So what if this old man likes to have the president pointing her gun at my head? That's the Fearless Alliance's internal affairs. What business is it of yours? So you're admitting President Bai used a firearm and pointed the gun at you? Elder Jean calmly asked Li Gongchen. Li Gongchen was taken back. He looked at Yi Wanwan and looked at Elder Jean again. Yi Wanwan could only sigh inwardly at this scene. What kind of freaking pig teammate was this? Originally, Yi Wanwan could stubbornly deny it even if the Martial Arts Union had a video, but didn't Li Gongchen's words confirm her crime of using a gun? I never admitted that. Li Gongchen vehemently shook his head under Elder Jin's inquiry. Since you never admitted it, then please explain why you said President Bai pointed a gun at you and you like the feeling of having a gun pointed at you a lot? Elder Jean said. A sullen feeling rose in Li Gongchen's eyes. He clenched his fists and angrily said, Fine, it's my gun. I gave it to the president for safekeeping. Blame me if you want to condemn someone. It has nothing to do with the president. Fine, Li Gongchen, it's fine if you admit it. Take him away. A young man said behind Elder Jean. They never thought they could take away the president of the Fearless Alliance on this trip. Taking a scapegoat and finishing the mission would be enough. A few members of the martial arts union swiftly dashed forward, about to drag Li Gongchen outside. Your martial arts union is truly brazen. You dare to take away brothers of my Fearless Alliance at my headquarters. A bewitching smile turned up on Yi Wanwan's lips. I can allow the martial arts union to take Li Gongchen away, but whether the brothers behind me are willing, I can't guarantee it. Chapter 1342. 1342. The junior and senior management in the conference room all rushed forward like a wave and stood in front of Li Gongchen. The martial arts union wants to take someone away from the Fearless Alliance like this? Aren't you overestimating yourselves? Coldly shouted an elderly man with silver hair wearing an impeccable suit. No one has dared to behave so atrociously in the Fearless Alliance's territory in its history. A young man chuckled eerily, a bloodthirsty craze surfacing in his eyes. If you want to fight, the Fearless Alliance has never been afraid of anyone. Whoever dares to take Li Gongchen away, I'll fuck your mother. Step over my dead body first. Haha. Martial arts union, don't be too arrogant. Our Sisfeng has never been afraid of anyone, whether it's Emperor Ji, piece of shit, Lord Azura, the four great clans of the independent state, or a stray animal. When has our president ever cowered? Big Dipper loudly guffawed and shoved several members of the martial arts union to the side. This scene caused the people from the martial arts union to frown. Li Gongchen looked at Yi Wanwan, his eyes wet. He wanted to say something but didn't end up saying anything. He was proud he was able to become a member of the Fearless Alliance. It was worth it even if he died today, since he had such a good president. Look. Yi Wanwan's smile remained wide. See, it's not that I'm unwilling to let you take Li Gongchen away, but my brothers have a temper and personality. Even I can't manage them as their president. Is that so? Elder Jean glanced indifferently at Yi Wanwan and said dryly, from the looks of it, it's because President Bai doesn't have a strict enough reputation. It's fine though. Since you can't manage your subordinates well, President Bai, our martial arts union can manage them for you. Yi Wanwan snorted inwardly. As expected, this old guy managed to advance to being an elder of the martial arts union, so he was a real piece of work. Then Elder Jean doesn't plan on sparing Li Gongchen? Yi Wanwan asked softly. Li Gongchen committed a wrong and broke the rules, so he naturally has to be punished. Even the heads of the four great clans would have to accept punishment if they broke the rules, not to mention Li Gongchen. Elder Jean replied aloofly. The entire independent state strongly disliked the usage of firearms. Like Elder Jean said, even the heads of the four great clans would become the entire independent state's enemy if they used firearms. However, Yi Wanwan just chuckled lightly. Elder Jean, I can't agree with you. It's true that the independent state prohibits the use of firearms, but why must you be so serious about a toy gun? A toy gun? Everyone present was shocked. Yi Wanwan took the phone from the martial arts union member and pointed at the video. Elder Jean, you might be old, but your eyes should still be able to see. No bullets came out when the trigger of the gun was pulled. It was merely a toy gun. Yi Wanwan's words were the incontestable truth. Hundreds of eyes saw her pulling the trigger, but no bullets shot out. It wasn't an overstatement to call a gun without any potential to harm a toy gun. President Bai, what evidence do you have to prove that gun was a toy gun? Elder Jean asked as he looked away from the video. Chapter 1343. Then Elder Jean, what evidence do you have to prove that gun was a real gun? Was someone injured? Or did you find a bullet? If Elder Jean has proof, then the Fearless Alliance will take care of Li Gongchen ourselves faster than your martial arts union. Yi Wanwan's lips turned up. You, the member of the martial arts union who recorded that video, fumed with rage between gritted teeth. Bai Feng, the president of the Fearless Alliance, was too good at words. And they couldn't refute this excuse at all. Since no one was hurt by the gun, and you didn't find a bullet. Elder Jean, you didn't even clearly investigate the truth, yet rashly came to my fearless alliance to denounce us for a non-existent crime, and wanted to arrest people. Shouldn't Elder Jean and the Martial Arts Union give me an explanation? Yuan snorted. Elder Jean frowned slightly. Rumors of Bro Flat Top merely said she was arrogant, imperious and fearless, but he didn't expect her to be so quick-witted and eloquent. This didn't match the rumors. Elder Jean chose to stop haggling about this matter and said aloofly, "Let's forget about that for now. Let's talk business." Yuan was pensive when she heard Elder Jin's words. This old geezer would probably use the previous accusation as the bedrock for this supposed official business. As for what it was, she had a feeling it wasn't anything good. Elder Jean, let's get to the bottom of this matter first. Yuan snorted. Your martial arts union came spewing accusations at the Fearless Alliance before clearly investigating everything. If you don't give me an explanation today, how would that affect the Fearless Alliance's standing in the independent state? The people from the Fearless Alliance all looked at each other. The president of the Fearless Alliance was truly daring. She got the upper hand already but still flaunted it. Not only did she successfully clear her crime of using a gun, but she still wanted the Martial Arts Union to give her an explanation. Oh, then may I ask what you want, President Bai? Elder Jean asked Yuan with a light chuckle. Elder Jean, you've gotten muddle-headed with age. If someone has committed a wrong, they should apologize, Yuan said. The members of the Martial Arts Union's faces all shifted. She wanted them to apologize. Good, President Bai is frank and straightforward as expected. It was the Martial Arts Union's fault for not thoroughly investigating the matter first. Elder Jean told a young man behind him. Apologize already. This young man was the one who recorded Yuan using a gun with his phone. The young man gnashed his teeth before turning to look at Yuan eventually. I'm very sorry, President Bai. You should apologize to Li Ganchen, Yuan said aloofly. Fine. The young man turned to Li Ganchen. I'm sorry. Humph. Li Ganchen snorted. Punk, brighten your vision next time. You can't even differentiate between a toy gun and a real gun. What trash. Blah. Li Ganchen spat at the young man. The young man tightly clenched his fists but didn't say a word. Elder Jean had to have a reason for making him apologize. All right, President, we should talk official business now, Elder Jean said. Speak. Yuan replied nonchalantly. Does President Bai still remember Azura? Elder Jean chuckled lightly. Yuan's brows furrowed lightly. Why did this old geezer mention Azura? How the heck would she remember? Of course I remember. What do you mean, Elder Jean? Why don't you speak frankly? Yuan calmly said. Chapter 1344. Elder Jean dryly examined Yuan before chuckling lightly and said, Of course President Bai remembers. It was President Bai who led the Fearless Alliance and joined the plan to eradicate Azura back then. You worked the hardest too. Yuan was silent. This old geezer was telling the truth. President Bai should know that Azura has recently resurged from the dead. Rumors say that Lord Azura has returned. I think President could take advantage of Azura's weak period and strike a fatal blow. Elder Jean said to Yuan. Elder Jean, I'm afraid you didn't honor us with your visit today because of the gun matter, right? The main objective was Azura, am I right? Yuan snorted. Elder Jean didn't refute this. President Bai, you should know that it was you who was the first to lead the eradication of Azura. Now that Lord Azura has returned and Azura has resurged from the dead, they probably aren't that friendly toward President Bai and the Fearless Alliance. President Bai should plan while you still can, Elder Jean advised. Yuan called Elder Jean an old fox inside her mind. The Martial Arts Union was the official faction of the independent state, and Azura didn't do anything that violated the independent state's principles. So even the Martial Arts Union didn't have the right to repress Azura. However, Azura's power was too enormous and Lord Azura was arrogant, unyielding and unruly. He ignored the Martial Arts Union completely, offending the Martial Arts Union's ego. The Martial Arts Union wouldn't destroy Azura themselves. Instead, they would instigate other factions to do it for them. Yi Wanwan had a basic understanding of the animosity between Azura and the Fearless Alliance. During Azura's most prosperous period, many factions of the independent state had to offer a tribute every month, and the Fearless Alliance was no exception. However, Bro Flattop became furious and killed the Azura members who came asking for a tribute. And so, the feud between the two was formed. Hence, back when the Martial Arts Union launched a plan to eradicate Azura, the Fearless Alliance agreed to it without any hesitation. Yi Wanwan didn't know what happened afterward though. Why should I agree to this? What benefit will the Fearless Alliance and I get from this? Yi Wanwan said with a faint smile. The Martial Arts Union can send people to assist the Fearless Alliance and President Bai, Elder Jean replied. Just that. Yi Wanwan snorted. It's you, the Martial Arts Union, who wants to destroy Azura, so it's warranted for you to provide money, power, and people. That doesn't count. President, you probably offended piece of shit, right? Elder Jean switched the topic suddenly, and said meaningfully. I'm sure President Bai knows what kind of person piece of shit is. Even the ancient clans fear piece of shit to an extent. The Fearless Alliance is nobody in piece of shit's eyes. If President Bai agrees, our Martial Arts Union can mediate between you two and make sure piece of shit doesn't cause trouble for President Bai and the Fearless Alliance. Big Dipper snorted before Yi Wanwan could say anything. Bluff all you want. If you're really that capable, you should get piece of shit to attack Azura instead. Even Azura in its peak period might not dare to provoke piece of shit. Why did you come looking for us? Piece of shit could eliminate an entire army by himself. It was a truth publicly recognized in the independent state that piece of shit was unmatched. Chapter 1345. Of course, the independent state alone wasn't enough to describe piece of shit's prowess though. In piece of shit's own words, there wasn't anyone in this world who was his match. The Martial Arts Union might be the official faction of the independent state, but they would also suffer if they backed piece of shit into a dead end. President Bai doesn't need to worry about that. Our Martial Arts Union naturally has our methods, Elder Jean said with a chuckle. Elder Jean, you probably misunderstood something. Our Fearless Alliance has never been afraid of anyone, including piece of shit. As for how piece of shit's name reverberated throughout the independent state, I think Elder Jean should know this well. Yi Wanwan said disdainfully. If the president of the Fearless Alliance was really afraid of piece of shit, why would she publicize piece of shit's nickname far and wide? Even now, no one in the independent state knew piece of shit's real name, and only called him piece of shit. President Bai, you accepted a few outsiders. Do you really think the Martial Arts Union doesn't know? Elder Jean chuckled coldly. The rules of the independent state weren't established just by our Martial Arts Union. It also includes the 4 great clans and some secret factions. If President Bai really wants to break this rule, it's no big deal if something happens to yourself, but I'm afraid you'll drag your brothers down with you. Elder Jean chuckled. Of course, if President Bai agrees, our Martial Arts Union will act as the authority on this matter, and give those people a permit for the independent state, allowing them to become residents of the independent state. We can end the matter like that. How about it? Yi Wanwan was brimming with jealousy from Elder Jin's words. I also want a permit for the independent state. If she had the permit, why would she need to pretend to be the president of the Fearless Alliance? Her heart wouldn't be raised to her throat all day, and she wouldn't roll at night sleeplessly anymore. Elder Jean, I can agree to your request, but agreeing doesn't mean I was successfully threatened by you. It's because we do have animosities with Azura. How about this? Aside from the aforementioned terms, your Martial Arts Union will provide 3 times the manpower and money, and will assist us to your best ability when needed. Otherwise, case dismissed. Yi Wanwan negotiated. What? 3 times the manpower and money? Some of the Martial Arts Union members standing behind Elder Jean looked at each other, bewildered. The outside world said that the president of the Fearless Alliance was avaricious in nature, and would rob money when she lacked it. Even the extremely wealthy Shen family, one of the 4 great clans, was once robbed by her. It appeared there was some truth to those rumors. 3 times. President Bai is truly demanding an exorbitant price. Elder Jean looked at Yi Wanwan meaningfully. He invited many factions into this plan to destroy Azura, but the Fearless Alliance was the hardest to coax and the darkest and craftiest faction. There had never been a faction who dared to negotiate with the martial arts union like this. Fine, I'll agree to your terms, President. Triple the amount of manpower and money. Elder Jean finally nodded and complied. Okay, hurry. The manpower isn't urgent, but send the money to me first. Remember, everything is null if you're missing a single thing, Yi Wanwan said. Heh. Elder Jean chuckled lightly. Don't worry, President Bai. Since we agreed to your terms, we definitely won't renege on them. I'll excuse myself now that we're done discussing official business. Then Elder Jean led the members of the Martial Arts Union out of the conference room. Big Dipper turned to Yi Wanwan in surprise. Sis Feng, I feel like you're more arrogant since your return. Back then, you would merely demand double the amount when you asked for money from the Martial Arts Union. This time, you actually demanded triple. Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Who knew how much prices have risen since then? I merely increased it a fraction. Chapter 1346. Big Dipper was rendered speechless by Yi Wanwan's explanation. She sounded very logical. Sis Feng, are we really gonna cause trouble for Azura? But if the Martial Arts Union provides us with the money and manpower, we can consider it since Lord Azura just returned and Azura hasn't returned to its peak yet. Big Dipper quietly said to Yi Wanwan. The members of the Fearless Alliance present all nodded in approval of Big Dipper's words. Cause what trouble? We'll take the money first and discuss it later. Yi Wanwan glanced at them. Sis Feng, you aren't planning on embezzling the Martial Arts Union's money and doing nothing, right? Our Fearless Alliance might have a bad reputation, but we're renowned for our credibility. Look, our 7-kill order declares that any faction who receives it will be destroyed within 7 days, and not even a god could save them. This 7-kill order relies on trust. If we took the money but didn't act as promised and reneged on our word, it would be bad for our reputation, right? Big Dipper turned to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan was startled. What the heck did he mean by being trustworthy? How the heck does destroying someone's clan have anything to do with credibility? Who said our Fearless Alliance isn't trustworthy? Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Which of your ears heard I was planning to do nothing? Big Dipper looked bewildered. Then Sis Feng means. I merely promised the Martial Arts Union I'd attack. Did I say when I'll attack? Yi Wanwan asked coldly. I don't think so. Big Dipper automatically shook his head. Since I didn't say when I'll attack, why are we in such a hurry? If I'm in a bad mood, I don't have to attack for 10 or 20 years. Yi Wanwan snorted. Then Sis Feng, are you in a bad mood right now? Big Dipper inquired. I am. Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Big Dipper relaxed when he heard that. That's good. I say we should wait 20 years before attacking Azura. Yi Wanwan didn't respond to that. Anyway, she wasn't the president of the Fearless Alliance. She'd first extort the money from the Martial Arts Union. Then the Martial Arts Union wouldn't be able to find her when they looked for her later. The one who extorted their money was the president of the Fearless Alliance, not her. Meeting adjourned. Yi Wanwan waved her hand and turned to leave. A moment later, Yi Wanwan returned to the office. The man who Yi Wanwan arranged to watch over Virus and Great White hadn't left yet. He stood as quiet as a cicada in winter by the side, his eyes not daring to move a millimeter away from Virus and Great White. President, you're finally back. Ah, President. The man looked like he was reuniting with his long-lost parents when he saw Yi Wanwan entering the office, excitement brimming on his face. Virus and Great White didn't start fighting, right? Yi Wanwan asked. The man shook his head frantically. No, they didn't start fighting. I'd definitely accomplish any task the president assigned to me. Although Virus and that white tiger are ferocious and nearly started fighting a few times, they were intimidated by me. They wouldn't dare to fight with me present. However, just as the man finished speaking, Virus and Great White turned to look at the man in a rare moment of synchronicity, as though they understood the man's words. Are all the members of the Fearless Alliance so good at bragging? Who did they learn it from? President, if there's nothing else, I'll be taking my leave now. The man looked embarrassed. Yi Wanwan waved her hand, allowing the man to leave. Chapter 1347. After the office door closed, Yi Wanwan sprinted to Great White and grabbed him, lavishing him with affection. Great White looked a bit exasperated and merely lay in his spot silently. However, at that point, Virus pushed Yi Wanwan's back with a paw, his large, black eyes intently staring at her. Little Black is good, Yi Wanwan happily said as she started scratching Little Black's chin. Virus' eyes were narrowed as his head raised, pure enjoyment on his face. After petting Virus and Great White, Yi Wanwan finally let them go. Immediately, Virus stood up while Great White remained silently laying in his spot, unmoving, but Great White's eyes were locked onto Virus. Virus stretched before imposingly striding over to Great White and laying down in front of Great White. However, Virus was facing Great White with his butt. This scene rendered Yi Wanwan speechless. Virus was probably announcing his authority to Great White and telling this tiger this place was his territory, so he was the boss. Great White didn't have any desire to pay attention to Virus though. He merely turned his head to the side. Anyway, it was good that Virus and Great White didn't start fighting. This territory belonged to Virus to begin with, so he should be allowed to play boss as he pleased. Yi Wanwan sat down on her office chair and sunk into contemplation. She still had too many things to do, but she couldn't mobilize the Fearless Alliance's core power right now. It was unrealistic for her to use the Fearless Alliance's core power to search for Si Yihan. Moreover, it would elicit the suspicion of 7-Star and Emperor Ji, as well as those old geezers in the Fearless Alliance. If only she could build a power that solely belonged to her. Of course it was a good plan, but implementing it wouldn't be easy. Yi Wanwan knew that by pretending to be Bai Feng in the Fearless Alliance, she could die horribly with no hope of salvation if she was the slightest bit careless. Additionally, her position was too passive. Today the martial arts union came looking for trouble. Tomorrow, piece of shit would come looking for trouble. In a few days, the 4 great clans would probably also come looking for trouble. What would she do if this continued? However, based on the current situation, she was extorting a large sum of money from the martial arts union, and the Fearless Alliance was rich to begin with. In her position as the president of the Fearless Alliance, it shouldn't be difficult for her to mobilize some funds. If she used someone else's money to create her own power. Sisfeng. Before Yi Wanwan could think anymore, Big Dipper's voice was heard from outside the door. Yi Wanwan packed away her thoughts and restored her aloof facade. Enter. Big Dipper opened the door and entered, walking toward Yi Wanwan. Sisfeng, are you free tonight? Let's go party. It's been a while since we've partied. Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Party your ass. Party where? Yi Wanwan inquired. A new place opened up lately. I heard there's a lot of new items there. Big Dipper laughed mischievously. This isn't another strange and exotic restaurant, right? Where they'll make me eat fried ants. I'll leave it to you and 7-Star to arrange it, Yi Wanwan said. I promise. Big Dipper turned to leave. Hold on. Yi Wanwan stopped Big Dipper. Let's build a small park here. Big Dipper froze in his spot. Build a park? What do you mean? A residence for Great White and Virus. Yi Wanwan replied matter-of-factly. Big Dipper was astonished. Sisfeng, isn't it too extravagant to build a park for 2 wild beasts? This is utterly. Oh right, I think the 7th floor is quite nice. There's a lot of light and space. It's perfect to be turned into an indoor park. Yi Wanwan. Chapter 1348. Yi Wanwan was thinking of an outdoor park. Big Dipper had an even better idea. He wanted to renovate the 7th floor. However, Sisfeng, the 7th floor is the Elder's territory, you should think it over carefully. Of course, if you insist on renovating it. Big Dipper chuckled mischievously. Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. What did I say? Who was it that wanted to renovate the 7th floor this whole time? It's fine, Yi Wanwan said calmly. The entire Fearless Alliance is mine. Are you saying I need to ask for the Elder's permission to change something in my own territory? I'll leave this task to you. Help me renovate the 7th floor. Directly go to the finance department to approve the expense. Big Dipper's face changed when he heard that. Leaving this task to him. Wasn't this the same as telling him to offend those old geezers? However, Yuanwan said her piece, so Big Dipper naturally couldn't refute it. Big Dipper wished nothing more than to ruthlessly slap himself. Why did I run my mouth off? Alright. Sisphone then. I'll go do that now if there's nothing else. Big Dipper sighed and said dispiritedly. Go on, go on. Yuanwan waved her hand, telling Big Dipper to get out of her sight. Yuanwan went to engage in another round of petting Virus and Great White after Big Dipper left. However, a moment later, Yuanwan's phone started ringing suddenly. Yuanwan was startled when she saw the caller ID. Big Dipper gave this phone and number to her when she first joined the Fearless Alliance. Only a few people aside from Big Dipper and 7 Star knew this number. Yuanwan answered the phone and coldly said, Speak. Is this Door Master? An indifferent and laid-back voice was heard from the other end. Which dumb fool was calling and asking if she was the president? Rubbish. Yuanwan coldly asked. Which department are you? A moment of silence occurred. What do you mean? What do I mean? Yuanwan's lips twitched. Who are you? Ishui Han. The indifferent voice answered. What? Piece of shit. Yuanwan was in shock and disbelief when she learned the other person's identity. Thinking back on it, piece of shit called her Door Master, not president. And no, Lord Shit. I mean Knight Erranty, it's you. Why are you suddenly free today, Knight Erranty? Yuanwan's icy smile instantly disappeared without a trace. Yuanwan suddenly recalled that she exchanged phone numbers with piece of shit at the casino that night. However, she never expected piece of shit to call her out of his own initiative. She'd nearly forgotten about this matter. Business, piece of shit said aloofly. Knight Erranty, what business? Yuanwan's brows furrowed slightly at piece of shit's words. Could it be that piece of shit discovered her identity? I'll give you an address. We'll talk when you arrive. Piece of shit hung up the phone immediately after saying that. Yuanwan was dumbfounded as she listened to the busy tone on the other end of the phone. He didn't give me the address yet. Yuanwan quickly sent piece of shit a text message, telling him to give her his address. Yuanwan sunk into silence when she saw the address in the message. Should she go by herself to see this top-level boss of the independent state, or bring a large team? After pondering over it for a long time, Yuanwan decided to go by herself. Chapter 1349. 1349. Back then, Bro Flat Top laid down a trap and planned to trick piece of shit, but ended up tricking herself instead. The advantage in numbers seemed to be useless against piece of shit. Yuanwan had no choice but to drive alone toward the address sent by piece of shit. What was most troublesome was that the independent state didn't have any map navigations, so who knew how many wrong turns she had taken? Yuanwan finally managed to reach the destination close to evening. After getting out of the car, Yuanwan assessed her surroundings, confusion surfacing on her face. This place looks a little familiar, like... Yuanwan's face suddenly shifted. Isn't this place near my haunted mansion? Miss Yi. Piece of shit's voice was heard behind her. Yuanwan reflexively turned around. His long, ink-colored hair fell to his waist, and his athletic tracksuit gave him a very casual appearance, but when it was paired with his face, it could seriously make people want to shriek. Too freaking beautiful. How could a grown man look so beautiful? If piece of shit wore women's clothes, he would simply be perfect aside from the fact that his chest was flat. Lord Shit. Yuanwan hastily received him with a smile when she saw piece of shit walking toward her. Piece of shit's brows furrowed slightly at Yuanwan's form of address. Lord Shit, may I ask, why did you call me here? Yuanwan asked with a grin. Piece of shit looked at Yuanwan and dryly said, No need to be so polite, Miss Wanwan. You can just call me Ishui Han. She actually forgot about this part. Piece of shit didn't like this nickname, but what did this have to do with politeness? Let's go to my house, piece of shit quietly said. Go to your house. Yuanwan was startled. Piece of shit and I are freaking neighbors. Actual freaking neighbors? A moment later, Yuanwan followed piece of shit to a place near the haunted mansion. When they passed by Yuanwan's haunted mansion, Piece of shit suddenly stopped and pointed at the mansion. This is a haunted house. A dismemberment case happened there before. There's probably a ghost inside. Can you freaking talk humanese? What freaking ghost? I live there, okay. It's pretty scary. But aren't ghosts too unscientific? There probably aren't any, Yuanwan said with an awkward chuckle. Piece of shit looked at Yuanwan. Too many unscientific things happened. I saw a ghost there with my own eyes. You're at least the highest and most frightening boss in the independent state. Is it really okay for you to patter on nonsensically while looking so earnest? Although Yuanwan was scared of ghosts, she knew ghosts didn't exist in this world. But when piece of shit claimed there was a ghost inside with such a serious expression, how the heck was she supposed to continue living there? Lord shit, let's talk business instead. Yuanwan helplessly smiled. She really didn't want to continue with this topic of a haunted house. Soon, the two of them arrived at a house near the haunted mansion under piece of shit's lead. It was rather coincidental. This house was located behind the haunted mansion. If Yuanwan stood on the top floor of the mansion, she could clearly see this place from the window. As Yuanwan examined this place, she noticed something unusual about the house. There wasn't a door. Chapter 1350. Yuanwan suddenly understood why piece of shit reached out to her as she looked at this doorless mansion. Someone tried to assassinate me earlier and accidentally broke the door when they attacked. Piece of shit explained to Yuanwan. Assassinate you? Yuanwan wanted to laugh. It turned out this top-level boss could also be the target of an assassination. However, I feel like my assassins most likely went to the wrong place. Piece of shit glanced at the nearby haunted mansion. They probably wanted to assassinate the owner of the haunted mansion, but went to the wrong place. Although Yuanwan wanted to choke piece of shit to death, his words caused her to sink into contemplation. If piece of shit's words were true, didn't that mean someone wanted to assassinate her? She seemed to have only offended third elderly C in the independent state. Yuanwan didn't take it too seriously though. After all, no assassins could commit such a low-level mistake and not even figure out their victim's correct address. So, Lord Shit wants me to help you change the door? Yuanwan asked piece of shit slowly. Aren't you the door master? I'm unfamiliar with this area, so help me get a large and secure door. Piece of shit requested her. Yuanwan was at a loss for words. The hell was she a door master? What would she know about secure doors? Alright, I'll try my best. Yuanwan was forced to nod in agreement. It was a hole that she dug herself after all. I want it as soon as possible. I can pick it up from your store too, piece of shit said. Don't. I mean, it's fine. We have a delivery service. After I choose one for you tomorrow, I'll have a worker deliver it and help you install it. Yuanwan's lips twitched. What freaking store did she have? Alright. Piece of shit nodded. Miss Yi, come inside and have a seat. Lord shit, it's fine. Yuanwan shook her head. She didn't have any time. She still had to freaking buy a door for piece of shit. Let's eat a casual meal together. Piece of shit turned and entered the doorless house. Yuanwan lightly sighed and had no choice but to follow piece of shit inside. Piece of shit's residence was very simple. Besides a few chairs and desks, there wasn't anything else inside the large room. I'll go make the food. Feel free to have a look around, piece of shit told Yuanwan. Yuanwan was startled when she heard that. This legendary boss actually knew how to cook? What a homely man. Do you eat meat, Miss Wanwan? Piece of shit asked. I do. Yuanwan nodded vehemently. Oh, but I don't have any. I've been eating vegetarian recently. Piece of shit turned to enter the kitchen. Then why did you freaking ask whether I ate meat? After piece of shit entered the kitchen, Yuanwan looked around the house. Piece of shit's residence was rather nice and spacious, but was rather lifeless. Although the house was clean and organized, some simple decorations would make it look a lot better. A photo hung on the nearby wall. The person in the photo bore some similarities to Yuanwan in appearance and looked exquisite. A moment later, Yuanwan sat down on the sofa and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Piece of shit, and she were actually neighbors. Being neighbors with such a legendary boss was rather stressful. Chapter 1351. About half an hour later, piece of shit served the food on the dining table. Yuan glanced at it. They were vegetarian dishes, but they looked quite appetizing. She didn't expect a boss like him to have good cooking skills. Miss Yi, please help yourself. Piece of shit said to Yuan as he sat down at the table. Yuan didn't hold back and started eating. What freaking good cooking skills. Yuan swore she'd rather eat fried ants. Aside from looking good, these dishes weren't good at all. It was absolutely unbearable to swallow. Lord shit, is that your wife? Yuan glanced at the series of photos nearby. Piece of shit glanced at the photos as well and aloofly said, "That's my mother. Mother passed away a long time ago. Your personality is a bit similar to my mother's," piece of shit said after surveying Yuan a few times. Yuan was startled. Similar in personality? Is he referring to how I protected him back at the casino? Lord shit, you must know a lot of things with your identity, right? Yuan asked meaningfully. About what? Piece of shit asked as he ate the incredibly awful food. Lord shit must be quite familiar with the Fearless Alliance, right? I heard Lord shit's nickname was given by the president of the Fearless Alliance. Yuan probed furtively. Piece of shit was taken aback when he heard that. I think she's called by phone. Piece of shit shook his head. I'm not familiar with her. Shit, what a great nonchalant. I'm not familiar with her. The president of the Fearless Alliance schemed in every way she could to challenge piece of shit, and ended up on the ground after a fierce beating from piece of shit. Now, it turned out piece of shit was utterly unfamiliar with Bro Flat Top, and hadn't retained any memories of her, nor did he attach any importance to her. Then, does Lord shit know about the faction, Azura? Yuan continued to ask. I've heard of them. Piece of shit nodded and looked at Yuan. Why's a door seller like you so interested in these factions of the independent state? Yuan explained with a smile. Lord shit, it's not like that. I conduct a business. Isn't it normal for me to learn about these factions of the independent state? Piece of shit nodded. It sounded rather logical. A faction like Azura is considered top-notch in the independent state. They're decent, piece of shit said. Look at this freaking difference between his reactions. When I asked him about the president of the Fearless Alliance, he was utterly unfamiliar. When I asked about Azura, he immediately replied in recognition. Lord Azura should know about Lord Azura too, right? Yuan hastily added. The president of the Fearless Alliance and Lord Azura were great enemies, so Yuan wanted to obtain all the knowledge she could about Lord Azura. I've heard of him. Piece of shit nodded. Then, is Lord Azura very strong? How does he compare to the Fearless Alliance? Yuan asked. They probably aren't on the same level. Is Lord Azura very strong? Yuan asked again. He's decent. I've heard some things about Lord Azura. Piece of shit answered. Yuan couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Since someone at piece of shit's level called Lord Azura decent, it was proof of Lord Azura's frightening abilities. Isn't the martial arts union sending me to my death by telling me to handle Azura? Whether it's the Fearless Alliance or the Azura, it's best if you don't ask too much about them. Just focus on conducting your business. You don't need to overly involve yourself with these factions. Piece of shit said to Yuan. Chapter 1352. Yuan merely nodded at piece of shit's genial reminder. Yuan also didn't want to involve herself too much with them. Her original intention upon coming to the independent state was merely to find Si Yihan and ask him about the truth, then take him back to China. Who would have expected everything to escape her control after coming to the independent state? She sank deeper and deeper, unable to extract herself. Lord shit, why haven't you ever created any factions? Yuan asked curiously. Rumors claimed this man in front of her had absolute power. This was especially true in a place like the independent state where a person wasn't allowed to use firearms and wasn't overly restrained by laws. Martial skills were everything, so why didn't someone like piece of shit create his own power and build his own empire? Piece of shit was briefly startled. After a moment of thought he said, why should I create a faction and recruit a bunch of useless garbage? What's the point of that? Yi Wanwan was rendered speechless. Everyone was probably garbage in piece of shit's eyes aside from himself. He was seriously egoistical to his bones. Do you want to drink? Piece of shit asked Yi Wanwan a moment later. Yi Wanwan reflexively wanted to decline, but thought better of it, and realized that no one would control her here, so she nodded after a momentary daze. Sure. Piece of shit got up to retrieve the wine and poured a cup for Yi Wanwan. I brewed this wine myself. You can't drink it outside. Oh. Yi Wanwan was immediately interested. Yi Wanwan soon drank the entire cup. How's the taste? Piece of shit asked Yi Wanwan. The taste is nice, but there doesn't seem to be any alcohol taste. Yi Wanwan put down the cup with confusion on her face. She'd never drank wine that didn't have a taste of alcohol. Yes. Piece of shit nodded. It doesn't have any alcohol content, but there's a sweetness to it. Yi Wanwan looked at piece of shit, bewildered. Lord shit, could I treat this as a beverage? You could if you want, piece of shit said. Then why did you freaking ask me if I wanted to drink? Call it a beverage then. You're making a deer out to be a horse. Oh right, Lord shit, I live right next to you. You can come over whenever you have time. Yi Wanwan said to piece of shit. Next door. Piece of shit looked up. I only have a haunted house next door. Yi Wanwan was exasperated. That's an unlucky house at most. Isn't calling it a haunted house too much? You live inside that haunted house? Piece of shit was astonished. Yes, I live inside the haunted house, Yi Wanwan said as she nodded. Piece of shit was utterly unfamiliar with the president of the Fearless Alliance, so he was clueless about the president's previous residence. That was why it was fine for Yi Wanwan to tell him she lived next door. Oh. Be careful, it's haunted. Piece of shit nonchalantly said before getting up to clean the table. Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. Is piece of shit doing this on purpose? Oh right, Lord shit. Yi Wanwan suddenly stood up in front of piece of shit. I recently got news that there's someone preparing to eliminate Azura, and is providing generous compensation. Is Lord shit interested? Chapter 1353. If piece of shit was willing to fight Azura, couldn't she just sit back and relax? At that point, the martial arts union would give triple the price. She would give piece of shit 1/3 and keep the remaining 2/3. I'm not interested, piece of shit replied calmly. There's a lot of money. A lot of money. Yi Wanwan added enthusiastically. How much money? Piece of shit looked at Yi Wanwan. About this amount. Yi Wanwan whispered. I'm uninterested in outside factions and won't interfere with them. Otherwise, do you think the Fearless Alliance would have survived until today? Piece of shit asked Yi Wanwan. Could it be that piece of shit wasn't being merciful toward the president of the Fearless Alliance? He simply wasn't interested in attacking. Miss Yi, you probably aren't just a door seller, right? Piece of shit's unfathomable eyes suddenly turned toward Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan felt a little guilty. Did he see through me just like that? Besides selling doors, you're probably also a mission intermediary. Large factions assign missions. You're responsible for finding people to accept missions, and you take a percentage as commission. Am I right? Piece of shit continued. Intermediary. Do I look like an intermediary? That's right. Lord shit is seriously awesome. You managed to figure that out. I have to feed myself somehow, haha. Yi Wanwan quickly went along with it. Help me change the door tomorrow. I won't accept the mission, piece of shit said. Fine. You're the boss, everything you say is right. When Yi Wanwan left piece of shit's house, it was dusk. Big Dipper had started the renovation plans for the 7th floor already, and the elders on the 7th floor didn't say much. They merely moved to another floor. Inside her office, Great White and Virus were sound asleep, and one of Virus's paws was boldly placed on Great White's tummy. Sisfong, I made the reservation. At that time, Big Dipper entered the office and spoke with a chuckle. Wait. Yi Wanwan looked at Big Dipper. Do you know how to fix doors? Fix doors. Big Dipper was taken back before chortling. There's nothing I don't know. Sisfong, it was me who installed your office door. Great. Yi Wanwan nodded with joy. As people said, armies were to be maintained for years but used on a single day. Big Dipper was finally of use. Yuan tossed piece of shits addressed to Big Dipper. Put on a worker's uniform for me tomorrow. Then go to the address I gave you and install a security door. Huh? You want me to be a door installation worker? Big Dipper seemed to find it hard to accept. Why would he know how to install a door? He was just casually bragging. Don't prattle on about it and just go. Yuan glanced at Big Dipper. Fine. Big Dipper was forced to nod in agreement. Even bragging is so risky nowadays. Sis Feng, 7-star and the others are waiting. Let's go. Big Dipper hurried Yuan. Yuan didn't want to go to this place at all, but since Bro Flat Top liked to go out often, it was difficult for her to decline. Yuan had no choice but to get up and follow Big Dipper outside. 7-star and Autumn Water were also coming with them. About half an hour later, Big Dipper drove to a bustling street. They didn't get far and could already hear the deafening and provocative music. Only then did Yuan realize that Big Dipper was referring to a large and luxurious nightclub. Shit. I've never been to this kind of place. How should I fake my experience realistically? Chapter 1354. 1354. As the deafening music played, Yuan puffed up her courage and opened the door, slowly exiting the car. 7-star and Autumn Water were inside, and had requested a private room already. Please enter. A girl that looked like a server instantly came up to greet them with a smile. As they walked to the private room, Yuan saw a myriad of good-looking girls. Some wore rabbit girl costumes while some were cosplaying and looked very cute. However, what surprised Yuan was that there were actually men with heavy makeup who were wearing seriously eye-scathing clothes. However, their looks were passable. What kind of freaking place is this? A moment later, the server opened the door to the private room and retreated. Xiaofeng, come over. Autumn Water quickly stood up from the sofa upon seeing Yuan and waved her hand. 7-star sat on the side with an aloof expression. Sis Feng. Yuan nodded in response. A server entered the private room and asked with a smile. Do you need any drinks? Yuan was about to ask for some drinks when Big Dipper waved his hand and said, We don't. Our Sis Feng never drinks. Alright, give us some goods. The server nodded and left. Yuan was speechless. Si Yihan didn't allow her to drink alcohol when she was in China. Now that she was in the independent state, it turned out Bro Flat Top never drank alcohol either. After some time, a bunch of men and women flooded the room. The server stood on the side, allowing Big Dipper and his group to choose. You, come here. Big Dipper chuckled and picked a few girls in sexy clothes. Little Big Brother, come sit here. Autumn Water picked a decent-looking guy. 7-star, pick someone, Big Dipper urged when he saw 7-stars in activity. No need, 7-star calmly said. Pa outcast. Big Dipper pursed his lips and looked at Yuan. Sis Feng, ignore him. Your turn. Yuan's lips twitched. Bro Flat Top also liked this kind of thing. She swept over the selection. Although they weren't bad-looking, they seemed rather flavorless since she was accustomed to stunning beauties. I don't see anyone suitable, Yuan said. What in the world are you doing? Even I find them ugly. Can't you give us a better selection? Change. Big Dipper said with a frown. The server had no choice but to take all the guys away and show them another group a moment later. Sis Feng, this batch is good. They're better looking than the earlier ones. They can't compare to me, but they're passable, Big Dipper told Yuan. Everyone in this group was wearing casual suits. There were mature men overflowing with masculine charm. And there was also fresh meat with pure and sweet looks. However, they were still incredibly lacking compared to the stunning beauties she'd seen before. She really wasn't interested. There's nothing, Yuan said, bored. It wasn't that she didn't want to choose. There really wasn't anything good. 7-star couldn't possibly suspect her for this, right? Yuan believed that Bro Flat Top wasn't an unselective person. She'd at least want top-notch superior quality, right? Little Big Brother, come sit here. Yuan didn't find anything, but Autumn Water's eyes brightened. She instantly chose a shy-looking fresh meat. I didn't expect you to be like this, Autumn Water. Chapter 1355 Big Dipper looked at Yuanwan. Sis Feng, this is quite good already. When did your appetite get so big? What in the world do you want? Yuanwan thought about it and casually said, at least someone on Ji Xiran's level? These people wouldn't understand if she used Si Yihan as an analogy, so Ji Xiran's name surfaced in her mind. Ji Xiran. Big Dipper was taken back and looked confused. Who? Is he more handsome than me? Emperor Ji. Autumn Water glanced at Big Dipper exasperatedly. Big Dipper finally realized Yi Wanwan was talking about Emperor Ji. Damn. Sis Feng, seriously. Can we not have such high standards? I also like the independent state's #1 beauty. Do you see her paying any attention to me? Yi Wanwan smiled without saying anything. This was precisely her objective. With a request like hers, they could satisfy it if they had someone with Emperor Ji's good looks and forget it if they didn't. However, what Yi Wanwan didn't expect was that Autumn Water would secretly take out her phone and find Emperor Ji's number before texting him. Big Dipper had no choice but to tell the server to take this batch away. There was nothing to be done since Yi Wanwan didn't find anyone to her liking. At this moment, Yi Wanwan's phone started ringing. It was Lu Ying calling. Yi Wanwan stood up and left the private room immediately. She found a quieter place to take Lu Ying's call. Master. Lu Ying's voice resounded from the phone. Yi Wanwan wasn't too accustomed to Lu Ying's form of address. What is it? Yi Wanwan asked. Master, where are you? Lu Ying questioned. A nightclub. Yi Wanwan answered honestly. Lu Ying was silent for a moment before saying, Master, Old Zhang's group, and I might have coincidentally gotten some leads on the 9th Master today. However, we don't have a permit from the independent state right now, nor do we have the funds and manpower, so it's rather inconvenient for us to investigate the lead. Audio's tracks. Yi Wanwan's eyes brightened when she heard that. Yi Wanwan merely wanted to find Si Yihan as soon as possible and return to China with him. The Yi family, the Si family, they had too many things to resolve. Moreover, Yi Shouting and Yi Mufan didn't have much time left. Their sentencing would be decided in about 5 more months. She had to find Si Yihan and return to China before then. What news did you get? Yi Wanwan asked hastily. Master, it's a long story. But don't worry, Master, we'll definitely get to the bottom of it. However, we need the independent state's permit and money, and also identities, Lu Ying replied. Yi Wanwan nodded. Permits and money weren't a problem, but the identities Lu Ying mentioned. He probably wanted to obtain a position in the Fearless Alliance, so he could order around some members of the Fearless Alliance. It wasn't going to be easy though. We'll talk about it tomorrow. As for the permits, I've taken care of them already. You don't need to worry about money either, Yi Wanwan said. Lu Ying sounded a bit moved and hastily said, Thank you, Master. Lu Ying, you don't need to call me Master. Then, I'll call you Sis Feng in front of other people. Lu Ying complied. A moment later, Yi Wanwan hung up the phone. It appeared that allowing Lu Ying and Old Jiang and his group to stay behind was the correct decision. She finally got news of Si Yihan after being in the independent state for so long. Hopefully Lu Ying and the others could find some clear traces. After gathering her thoughts, Yi Wanwan turned to re-enter the nightclub. This girlie is pretty. Why didn't I see you earlier? Before Yi Wanwan could reach the room, a man blocked Yi Wanwan's path. How is she pretty? She's just a whore. A woman in red glanced at Yi Wanwan and snorted. Yi Wanwan frowned. Do they think I'm a hostess at this nightclub? Chapter 1356 Girlie, what's your name? Who's your leader? A middle-aged man unscrupulously checked out Yi Wanwan's figure. You've got the wrong person, Yi Wanwan coldly said as she glanced at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man stared at Yi Wanwan, his lips turning up. Oh, you have quite the temper. Before Yi Wanwan could say anything, the woman in red haughtily examined Yi Wanwan with disdain evident on her face. She asked the middle-aged man, Brother Xiong, what's good about this trash? She pretends to be holier than thou, but she should look in the mirror first and see who she is. Ah, Xiaolon, don't be jealous. Brother Xiong still loves you. The middle-aged man lasciviously slapped the woman in reds, but as he said that, the woman in red pouted. Brother Xiong, what are you saying? I'm just afraid this trash won't service you well. That's not necessarily true. You can service me together tonight, and you can guide her. How about it? The middle-aged man chuckled. The woman in red glanced at Yi Wanwan in contempt. Since that's what Brother Xiong wants, you'll service Brother Xiong well tonight, do you hear me? Yi Wanwan had a humorless smile on her lips. No one had ever acted so presumptuously toward her in the independent state. Although Yi Wanwan knew she wasn't the genuine president of the Fearless Alliance, she was currently resting on the president's throne. Scram, Yi Wanwan said impatiently. You little bitch. Do you know who Brother Xiong is? Allowing you to service Brother Xiong tonight is 3 lifetimes of good fortune. Yet you're fucking pretending to be pure? The woman in red angrily glared at Yi Wanwan. Ah, Xiaolan, don't be so mean. You're going to scare this little miss. The middle-aged man smiled at the woman in red and walked to Yi Wanwan. Girlie, you haven't answered me. What's your name? The middle-aged man reached out for Yi Wanwan's cheek as he said that. Slap. Almost in an instant, Yi Wanwan slapped away the man's right hand. Ah, little miss has a fiery temper. Nice, your Brother Xiong prefers them like this. Otherwise, it's like I'm fucking a dead fish, how boring. The middle-aged man licked his dry lips. Capture her and take her to Brother Xiong's house. The woman in red instructed the strong men standing nearby. The strong men accompanying them nodded and immediately walked forward, wanting to cart Yi Wanwan away. A cold glint flickered in Yi Wanwan's eyes as she swung a punch at one of the men's faces. Caught completely off guard, the strong man was hit and he staggered back, his hands clutching his nose as he collapsed onto the ground. A mere punch had broken his nose. You're asking for it. Another strong man shouted upon seeing that, enraged. Scram. Yi Wanwan didn't relax her arm and dug her elbow mercilessly into that man's neck. The whole thing took only a dozen or so seconds, and 2 strong men had fallen to the ground already, howls of pain ringing from their mouths. You damn whore, you dare to resist? The woman in red screeched. Slap. Yi Wanwan snorted and backhanded the woman in red's left cheek. The woman in red was flabbergasted as she stared at Yi Wanwan while clutching her swollen cheek. Chapter 1357. 1357 Brother Xiong, this whore hit me. This damn whore dared to hit me. The woman in red screeched shrilly. The commotion attracted quite a crowd. Soon, the nightclub's corridor was filled with people, but everyone's expressions shifted when they saw the middle-aged man. Isn't that Yin Xiong? He's from the Yin family. What's this woman's background? She dared to offend Yin Xiong. Is she suicidal? Hee, I heard she's a miss at this nightclub. How gutsy is this woman to dare to offend Yin Xiong of the Yin family? She probably doesn't know Yin Xiong's identity. Hee, what kind of power is the Yin family? Yin Xiong is one of the higher-ups in the Yin family, and he's never failed to get any woman he coveted. This woman is rather interesting, but her fate will likely be tragic. As gossip bubbled amongst the crowd, Yin Xiong's expression chilled instantly. This damn whore dared to embarrass him like this in front of everyone. This had never happened before. Girlie, don't ignore my kind gesture. I don't care whether you work here or not. You must leave with me tonight. Otherwise, I'll kill your whole family, then let my brothers have their turns with you. Yin Xiong threatened darkly while staring at Yi Wanwan. Slap. However, Yin Xiong's only answer was a merciless backhand from Yi Wanwan. Time seemed to have stopped after Yi Wanwan's slap. Everyone froze incredulously in their spots. A few workers at the nightclub glanced at Yi Wanwan and sneered disdainfully, waiting for a good show. They really didn't know where this ignorant woman who dared to hit Yin Xiong came from. Damn whore, I'm gonna fuck you to your grave today. Yin Xiong roared violently and reached for Yi Wanwan's wrist. However, before Yin Xiong could touch Yi Wanwan, she slapped him again, and he crumbled to the ground in a heap. A higher-up of the Yin family like Yin Xiong was rather martially talented when he was young, but his body had been destroyed by alcohol and sex in recent years, so how could he be a match for Yi Wanwan? Damn whore, you're dead. The woman in red stared at Yi Wanwan in disbelief. Yi Wanwan ignored the woman in red and kneeled down instead. She looked at Yin Xiong and sneered. Remember, I'm in room 302. Come and find me if you're a man. I'll be waiting for you. After saying that, Yuanwan left. Everyone looked at each other, bewildered. Was this woman a dumbass? Why didn't she flee after hitting Yan Xiong? She even told him her room number. Was she tired of living and wanted to die? That woman doesn't have some background, right? Background my ass. Who doesn't know the bosses of the independent state? I've never seen this woman before. She's probably fucking stupid. A moment later, Yuanwan opened the door and entered her private room. Xiaofeng, you're back. An extremely good-looking man wearing a black tailored suit with a bow tie sat silently on the sofa. He greeted her with a light chuckle when he saw Yuanwan. Yuanwan was surprised. Why is Ji Xiran here? Why are you here? Yuanwan frowned slightly. She was currently using Bro Flattop's identity, so she was also Ji Xiran's fiancée. She was at a nightclub looking for amorous affairs, no thanks to Big Dipper, which meant she was caught at the scene by her fiancé. How awkward. Chapter 1358. 1358. Autumn Water told me earlier that you wanted to find someone like me, so I came to take a look. Do I suit your taste? Ji Xiran looked at Yuanwan with a sardonic smile and gentle eyes. Yuanwan involuntarily shivered. Ji Xiran wasn't spewing nonsense from a fury-induced craze, right? Oh, I'm his fiancé. I was caught at a nightclub seeking pleasure. Yuanwan thought about it from a different point of view. What if she caught Si Yihan at a nightclub seeking pleasure? Ji Xiran had to be mad from fury. Yuanwan glared at Autumn Water. Her mouth seriously deserved a slapping. Come here. Ji Xiran extended his right hand and gestured at Yuanwan before slapping the spot next to him. Yuanwan had no choice but to walk to Ji Xiran and sit down next to him. Damn. Could it be that Sis Feng and Emperor Ji are really a thing? How did Sis Feng get her hands on Emperor Ji? Sis Feng didn't drug Emperor Ji, right? Big Dipper looked like he had seen a ghost and stared at Yuanwan and Ji Xiran in disbelief. 7-Star glanced at Big Dipper. What are you looking at me for? Emperor Ji's famous for being an abstinent sage in the independent state. Alright. Rumors say he's never touched a woman before. Damn, beautiful women surround him like flowers, but he doesn't even glance at them. If it was me. Big Dipper's expression became more and more surprised, and he turned to 7-Star. Old 7 say, Emperor Ji doesn't. What? 7-Star asked dryly. Doesn't like men, right? Big Dipper finished. Before 7-Star could say anything, Big Dipper stared at 7-Star and exclaimed, Shit. I've also never seen you touch a woman. You can't possibly. Also like men, right? Big Dipper subconsciously withdrew and increased the distance between them. 7-Star examined Big Dipper aloofly. He didn't look interested in responding to Big Dipper. Is this place fun? Ji Xiran nonchalantly asked Yuanwan. Emperor Ji immediately glanced at the fresh meat in the room and continued. Are they good looking? Before Yuanwan could say anything, the two fresh meat sitting next to Autumn Water were terrified with fright. This seemingly amiable and approachable man with a harmless and genial smile was actually the Emperor of Europe's underground, Ji Xiran. How could they not know Ji Xiran's great name as residents of the independent state? However, why was this man looking at them? Weren't they keeping Sister Autumn Water company? They were innocent. From now on, you can call me if you want to have fun. Ji Xiran looked away from them and turned back to Yuanwan with a faint smile. Big Dipper frantically gave Yuanwan a giant thumbs up as he quietly said to 7-Star, Say old 7, Emperor Ji can't be jealous, right? Damn, Sis Feng actually managed to snag Emperor Ji. Am I dreaming? Yuanwan didn't have a chance to say anything before the room's door was kicked open with a bang. Brother Xiong, this is room 302. The damn whore who offended you is here. Two seductively dressed nightclub workers entered the room first and stood by the door. They looked at Yuanwan with sneers. Big Dipper and the others were startled, clueless about the sudden turn of events. A second later, Yan Xiong and the woman in red entered the room. Damn whore, you're seriously gutsy. Today I'm gonna watch you die. The woman in red lit a cigarette and blew some smoke into the air while glaring viciously at Yuanwan. Chapter 1359. Yin Xiong gestured, and dozens of people rushed into the room like a tidal wave. Damn whore, I'm gonna let my brothers have a good time today. Strip her. Yin Xiong sneered. Big Dipper finally realized what had happened. Where did these people come from? Were they tired of living and suicidally causing a commotion in their territory? Emperor Ji didn't even glance at the newcomers and merely asked Yi Wanwan, "Are they looking for you?" Yi Wanwan nodded and said, "Just a few blind vermin. I was originally going to spare them." "Why the fuck are you standing there? Strip her already. Kill any nosy punks." Yin Xiong shouted malevolently. Dozens of men in black dashed toward Yi Wanwan. At that moment, Emperor Ji glanced at the men in black. His icy, dark gaze caused them to tremble for some reason. "Mr. Hong, is it? Can you please do me a courtesy and leave?" Ji Xiran lightly asked as he looked at Yin Xiong with a harmless smile. "Oh my, where did this little guy come from? You have rather good looks." The woman in red examined Ji Xiran for a moment before saying, "Brother, be more tactful and get lost immediately. This woman offended our brother Xiong, so she won't be leaving alive unless she gives my brothers a good enough time tonight. I'd like to see how slutty she is. All the unrelated people here except for this woman, get out of my sight. Otherwise you're all going to die here tonight." Yin Xiong shouted ruthlessly. "Brother Xiong, this damn whore dared to offend you. You mustn't allow her to leave alive. Brother Xiong, you're so benevolent. You're giving this whore a good time before her death." The two seductively dressed workers smiled at Yin Xiong ingratiatingly. Big Dipper and Autumn Water looked at Yin Xiong and his group like they were idiots. Just how ignorant were these people? They could be forgiven for not recognizing them. It was also logical for them to not recognize the Fearless Alliance's bro Flat Top, since she was gone for so many years and changed drastically in terms of appearance. However, the fact that they didn't even recognize the freaking Emperor of Europe's underground. "So you won't be doing me this courtesy," Ji Xiran said with a chuckle. Yin Xiong and his group snorted upon hearing that. Did this pretty boy really think he was someone important? Doing him a courtesy? Before Yin Xiong could say anything, a man in a white suit with an extremely grave and stern appearance entered the room. "My lord." The stern man bowed to Ji Xiran. "Skeleton, we can't stop the sky from raining," Ji Xiran said with a smile. The stern man, Skeleton, nodded in understanding. "We can't stop the sky from raining." The corresponding phrase was, "No one can save a person from seeking death. Kill." A dagger appeared in Skeleton's hand out of nowhere. Before anyone understood what was happening, Skeleton disappeared from his spot, and the strange sound of a weapon piercing flesh and bones was heard in the next second. A dozen breaths later, more than 10 of the people brought by Yin Xiong had their necks pierced by Skeleton's dagger. The remaining dozen or so people were flabbergasted by this scene. "He's one of the 8 gods under Emperor Ji. Knight Skeleton." "What? Skeleton?" The audience had grown outside the room. Everyone's expressions shifted when they heard Skeleton's name. They were all in disbelief. There were 8 gods under Emperor Ji with combat skills that could be described as freakish. Skeleton was one of them. Chapter 1360. 1360. Could it be that the woman who offended Yin Xiong had some kind of connection to Skeleton? Several audience members' expressions shifted when they thought of that. No wonder that woman acted so arrogantly and disregarded Yin Xiong to that extent. It turned out she knew Skeleton. Yin Xiong's expression also shifted drastically. He dashed out of room 302 within seconds. "Skeleton. You dared to oppose our Yin family for a woman. Did you ask Emperor Ji before doing that? Just wait." Yin Xiong angrily shouted into the room after getting outside. One of the higher-ups in their Yin family knew Emperor Ji, Ji Xiran, and that higher-up was coincidentally entertaining an esteemed guest in this very nightclub right now. "Brother Xiong." The woman in red didn't know what to do as she stood next to Yin Xiong. I'm going to call my 4th uncle over." At the same time, inside room 302, Skeleton looked at Emperor Ji in inquiry. "No need to chase them. Call someone to clean this place up. Ji Shiran said with a faint smile. Skeleton nodded minutely and turned to leave the room. A moment later, he led the manager of the nightclub there. The manager was drenched in sweat when he saw the corpses littering the ground, sweat dripping down like pearls from his forehead. Clean up this place, Skeleton apathetically ordered. Yes, sure. We'll clean it immediately. The manager ordered some servers to carry the corpses out and cautiously clean the entire room, returning it to its original condition before excusing himself and leaving. Seven Star and Big Dipper acted like nothing had happened. They were used to this kind of thing in the Fearless Alliance. Yi Wanwan nonchalantly glanced at Emperor Ji. This man always wore a faint smile no matter what was happening, as though he was a harmless boy next door. However, it was this seemingly gentle man who was the tyrannical emperor of Europe's entire underground syndicates. How could this man be anything but a bloodthirsty character? Everyone was probably deceived by his harmless exterior, but seriously believing Emperor Ji was harmless was likely the stupidest thing to do in this world. The consequence was a devastating attack. "Oh right, come to my house in a few days," Emperor Ji lightly said while looking at Yi Wanwan, his lips tightly sealed about the prior events. Yi Wanwan's expression shifted slightly. Aside from possessing his own power, Emperor Ji was also the heir of the Ji family, one of the 4 great clans of the independent state. Wasn't telling her to go to his house the same as telling her to go to the Ji residence? However, it seemed logical for a fiancé to visit her fiancé's house, so Yi Wanwan couldn't find any excuse to decline. "Sure, when I'm free in a few days." Yi Wanwan agreed in the end. Ji Shiran nodded lightly. At this time, Yen Xiong had reached a certain luxurious private room at the nightclub. "Fourth uncle." Yen Xiong pushed open the door and entered, fuming with rage. There was a smiling elderly man with a head of white hair in front of him. Sitting next to the elderly man was an extremely aloof man. The man's eyes were akin to a perpetually frozen glacier, and he emitted a terrifyingly icy aura from head to toe. This man seemed to have been God's favorite. His appearance was absolutely stunning. However, because his aura was overly imposing and powerful, people's attention was utterly focused on his aura, and some didn't even dare to look at his face directly. Chapter 1361, Lord Say, how about we submit this amount every month? Fourth Uncle Yan's tone was extremely cautious as he looked at the man with an ingratiating smile. "Fourth Uncle, don't talk anymore, I was bullied." Yen Xiong hastily walked toward the elderly man, and the man when his fourth uncle ignored him. However, Yen Xiong had just approached when the man's utterly bone-chilling eyes examined him. A mere look caused Yen Xiong to feel like he fell into an icy pit, frost covering his arms and ice eroding his cells. "You fucking idiot." Fourth Uncle Yen abruptly stood up and backhanded Yen Xiong's face without giving him another chance to speak. A crisp slap rang out. The force behind it was clear as day. Yen Xiong clutched his face and looked at the elderly man baffled. He complained with outrage. "Fourth Uncle, why did you hit me? You little bastard, you rashly charged inside without seeing who I'm with. Do you want to die?" Fourth Uncle Yen shouted angrily. Fourth Uncle Yen looked at the man next to him with a simpering smile. "Lord, I've embarrassed myself. This is my nephew." But some blind idiot offended him. The man expressionlessly looked at Fourth Uncle Yen for a moment before apathetically saying, "Then scram outside if you want to talk." "Why yes, my lord, I'll go outside to talk right now." The elderly man nodded vehemently. Yen Xiong looked at the man with an astonished expression. Just what was this man's background and status that he dared to speak to Fourth Uncle like this? What was most abnormal was that Fourth Uncle remained bowing and servile toward this man. Wasn't this too excessive? Soon, the elderly man led Yen Xiong outside the room. "Fourth Uncle, who's that man? Why's he so arrogant?" Yen Xiong looked at his uncle with incomprehension written all over his face. When Fourth Uncle Yen heard this, he mercilessly slapped Yen Xiong's face. "Do you fucking want to die? Quiet down. If he overhears you, you won't even fucking know how you died. Isn't that too exaggerated? He can't be Emperor Ji, right?" Yen Xiong recalled how Skeleton also showed up at the nightclub. Idiot, the lord inside is Lord Azura. Yin Xiong said. What? A lord. Lord Azura. Sweat and fright overcame Yin Xiong when he learned that man's identity. Lord Azura was the leader of Azura, one of the independent state's most terrifying powers once upon a time. People called him the Lord of Night. Cold, heartless, savage, and decisive. He held no regard for even the martial arts union. Rumors claimed Lord Azura had some connection to the independent state's recluse ancient clan, the Sea Clan. Alright, enough nonsense. What do you want? Fourth uncle asked. Yen Xiong immediately told fourth uncle Yen the whole story. Fourth uncle Yen grew furious upon hearing the events. That happened. Isn't Skeleton belittling our Yen family too much? I must make Skeleton give me an explanation tonight. Fourth uncle, Skeleton is under Emperor Ji. If we attack, wouldn't? Yin Xiong asked with a frown. No worries, I'll personally speak with Emperor Ji about this matter tomorrow, fourth uncle Yen replied. Soon, fourth uncle Yen called upon dozens of elite experts from the Yen family. No matter how strong Skeleton was, he wasn't a match for dozens of the top elite experts from the Yen family. Amongst the 8 gods under Emperor Ji, Skeleton's strength ranked the lowest. Rumor said Skeleton's specialty wasn't martial arts. His brain was best at being a military counselor. Chapter 1362. Soon, Yen family led fourth uncle Yen and the experts to the door of room 302. The woman in red and the 2 workers with heavy makeup and seductive clothes sneered when they saw fourth uncle Yan's appearance. Time to watch how that woman would die this time. Bang. Yin Xiong kicked the door open. Big Dipper and 7-Star frowned. You bastards are going to die today. The woman in red lit a cigarette and sneered as she looked at Yu Wanwan and Ji Xiran. Let's see how fucking egoistical you'll be now. The 2 seductive women also interjected with a sneer. Fourth uncle Yen slowly entered room 302 and was about to say something but froze in his spot when his eyes swept over the room. Fearless Alliance's Big Dipper. 7-Star. Autumn Water. Aside from these people, the man on the sofa languidly glanced at him with an aloof smile. You pieces of shit dared to offend me? Yen family sneered. You must all die tonight. Skeleton, our Yen family has connections to Emperor Ji. You dared to offend me tonight. Let's see how you'll explain yourself to Emperor Ji tomorrow. Then Yen Xiong ordered the elite experts brought by fourth uncle Yen. Attack. Leave me the damn whore next to the pretty boy. You're reading on BOXNOVEL. Thanks. However, Yen Xiong had just spoken when fourth uncle Yan's expression drastically changed, and he ruthlessly backhanded Yen Xiong's face. Fourth uncle, why did you slap me again? Yen Xiong was baffled as he clutched his face and looked at his uncle. Fourth uncle Yen didn't pay any attention to Yen Xiong though. He walked toward Ji Xiran and hastily said with a simpering smile, Emperor Ji, why are you here? The woman in red and 2 seductively dressed workers were utterly flabbergasted, their sneers frozen on their faces. The audience outside the door, which kept increasing in number, was also incredulous. That man was actually the greatly renowned Ji Xiran in the independent state. Emperor Ji. Could it be the woman who slapped Yen Xiong earlier is Emperor Ji's lover? I think it's possible. No wonder she's so gutsy and arrogant. It turns out she latched onto the powerful Emperor Ji. Yen Xiong is out of luck this time. That's not necessarily true. She's just a mere toy. The Yen family is quite strong, and Emperor Ji is friends with the previous head of the Yen family, so Emperor Ji probably wouldn't have a fallout with them because of a mere woman. The audience fervently gossiped amongst themselves. Yen Xiong froze in his spot. That man is Emperor Ji. Ji Xiran chuckled lightly and said, I came to spend some time with my friend, but I seem to have offended someone from your Yen family just now. Do I need to apologize? Apologize? No. Why in the world would you need to apologize, Emperor Ji? My nephew must have been blind and caused some misunderstanding. Emperor Ji, your esteemed self is benevolent, so please don't punish us for this matter. After all, it's just a woman. Fourth uncle Yen requested, falling all over himself. Punish? Ji Shiran smiled and shook his head. I won't punish you. Ha ha ha, that's great. Normal people couldn't compare to Emperor Ji's generosity. I'll thank Emperor Ji first. Fourth Uncle Yen hastily said with a grin. However, Ji Shiran looked at Fourth Uncle Yen and smiled. I might not punish you, but you have to ask the Fearless Alliance whether they'll punish you instead. The Fearless Alliance? Fourth Uncle Yan's brows furrowed slightly. Big Dipper, 7-star, and Autumn Water were the confidants of the Fearless Alliance's president from back then. They were once fearsome, but they had lost all real power in the Fearless Alliance following the president's disappearance. Chapter 1363. Ha ha ha, Big Dipper, 7-star. How about you give me some face and forget about this matter? It's all a misunderstanding. You two gentlemen probably wouldn't want to have bad blood with me because of a woman, right? It's just a woman. There's all kinds. Fourth Uncle Yen said with a chuckle. Discussion bustled amongst the audience again. Could it be that 7-star and Big Dipper from the Fearless Alliance also had a thing with this woman? However, it had to be said that this woman's looks were superb, so it would be understandable if she had illicit relationships with those bosses too. Heh, nothing but a high-level whore. In the end, she's still selling herself. The two seductively dressed workers snorted inwardly. The woman in red stared at Yi Wanwan with gritted teeth. She only managed to latch onto Yen Xiong of the Yen family, but this woman actually latched onto Big Dipper and 7-star from the Fearless Alliance. She seemed to have something with even Emperor Ji. Old geezer, it's pointless to ask us. Talk to Sis Feng yourself and see if she agrees. Big Dipper dryly replied with a glance at Fourth Uncle Yen. Sis Feng. Fourth Uncle Yen was startled and reflexively asked, which Sis Feng? What? You don't even recognize Sis Feng anymore? The president of the Fearless Alliance, Sis Feng, Big Dipper said. By Feng. Fourth Uncle Yen was astonished. Big Dipper. You're saying President Bai returned? Then where's President Bai? Isn't she before your eyes? Big Dipper pointed at Yi Wanwan. Silence. Dead silent. Not a single sound could be heard inside or outside the room. Everyone's eyes landed on Yi Wanwan. Time seemed to have stopped. The air also froze. Everyone was stupefied. What did Big Dipper just say? The woman who offended Yen Xiong was the president of the Fearless Alliance. Bro Flat Top. The woman in red and the two seductively dressed women next to her turned ghastly pale. They had never seen the president of the Fearless Alliance before, but who didn't know Bro Flat Tops, Bai Feng's infamous reputation? BB Bai Feng. I'm impossible. That's absolutely impossible. The woman in red crumbled onto the ground like a pile of mud. The two seductively dressed workers also froze on the spot, disbelief covering their faces. President of the Fearless Alliance. Bro Flat Top. The smile on Yen Xiong's face disappeared without a trace and was replaced by fear. What the heck did he do? She's President Bai? Fourth Uncle Yen looked at Yi Wanwan incredulously. Bullshit, Big Dipper coldly said. Isn't your Yen family's news a little outdated? How could you not know Sis Feng returned? This cold sweat soaked Fourth Uncle Yan's forehead. President. I won't take responsibility for this matter. It has nothing to do with me. You probably can't be in charge of it anyway, right? Ji Shiran asked the elderly man with a light chuckle. Ji Shiran turned to Yi Wanwan. Xiao Feng, how about you let me handle this matter? Yi Wanwan thought it over before nodding. Skeleton, you can give them a taste of their own medicine. Ji Shiran told Skeleton with a smile. All right. Skeleton nodded. Since Yen Xiong likes to give women to his favored brothers, then I'll give those 3 women to some normal brothers of mine. Playing with them until they're dead will do. Sure. Emperor Ji chuckled. Chapter 1364. 1364. The woman in red and the 2 workers turned ashen when they heard Ji Shiran. Never would they have expected the girl they called damn whore would actually be the president of the Fearless Alliance. Bro Flat Top. President Bai. I was wrong. I didn't do it on purpose. I beg you to spare me. I won't ever do it again. One of the workers knelt next to Yuanwan instantly and begged crazily. Autumn Water abruptly stood up and kicked out her leg, the tips of her high heels mercilessly striking the woman's forehead and sending the woman several meters back. Impudent trash. Autumn Water coldly glanced at the woman and sat back down. TSK, pitiful people must have something detestable about them. Even if she was a normal person, she didn't provoke you. Just because she's taller than you, has a bigger chest than you, and is better looking than you want nothing more than for her to die? What a damn whore. Big Dipper sneered at the woman in red and the two workers. Leave. Ji Xiran waved his hand lightly with a smile on his lips. Skeleton nodded and ordered someone to cart away the withered Yin Xiong and 3 women out of the room. Fourth uncle. Fourth uncle, save me. This is a misunderstanding. This must be a misunderstanding. Yin Xiong returned to his senses and couldn't help but beg his uncle to save him. Shut up. Fourth Uncle Yin glared harshly at Yin Xiong. What a useless idiot. You asked for death yourself. No one can save you. Don't drag me down with you. No. Fourth uncle. Isn't our Yin family sheltered by Azura? We pay tribute every month. Isn't Lord Azura also here? Fourth uncle, quickly tell Lord Azura to come out. Quick. Yin Xiong frantically shouted. However, fourth uncle Yin merely chortled. Just who was Lord Azura? Why would he interfere in this trivial matter? Moreover, it was a rule for the Yin family to submit a tribute to Azura every month because the Yin family's territory was situated in Azura's territory. But submitting a tribute didn't mean Azura would shelter them. It wasn't like they were giving a protection fee. If anything, Lord Azura would shelter the head of the Yin family. What did he have to do with nobodies like them? Soon, Yin Xiong's cries for mercy grew distant until they faded. Inside the room, Ji Xiran courteously smiled at fourth Uncle Yen and said, If there's nothing else, please leave as well. Why, Emperor Ji, President Bai, it was our wrongdoing today. We'll definitely apologize later. I'll take my leave now. Fourth Uncle Yen wiped away the sweat on his forehead and promptly left the room. The old geezer seriously has a flowery tongue. Big Dipper snorted. That fourth uncle is the Yen family's diplomat and has a belly full of evil tricks. Before the president returned, he was plotting against our fearless alliance. What a mood killer. Autumn Water snorted. Xiaofeng, let's go back. Sure. Yuanwan nodded. She wasn't interested in this kind of place from the start, so she wanted nothing more than to leave sooner. Everyone got up and left the room. When they left the room, a group of men in black walked downstairs, as though escorting an important person out of the club. Who is that? What an ostentatious entourage. Big Dipper leaned against the door as he looked ahead with curiosity. Yuanwan followed Big Dipper's gaze and looked toward the center of the men in black. What she saw startled her though. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.